The sky was on fire above the alien moon. The shuttle broke apart in the air. Pieces rained down like falling stars inside. Eli Grant held onto his seat. His hands were shaking. His head was bleeding. He had never been trained for this. He was a maintenance tech. He fixed engines, not crash landings, when the shuttle slammed into the ice. Everything went silent. When he opened his eyes, he was the only one moving. Bodies around him, frozen. Lifeless. His leg was broken. His arm was burned. But he was breathing. Snowflakes touched his skin like cold needles. The air was sharp. He couldn't stay outside. He had to find shelter crawling through the wreckage. Eli grabbed what he could. A broken pack, a flare, a thermal blanket. Every movement felt like fire in his bones. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. The wind howled louder than any animal. The cold tried to drag him down. Still he pushed forward. His eyes scanned the white landscape. Then he saw a dark hole in the rocks. A cave. He didn't think. He moved. The cave was narrow and deep inside. The air was warmer, still cold, but not deadly. He dropped to the ground. His breathing was rough, his hands numb. He pulled the blanket around him and leaned back. Maybe just a moment of rest. His eyes started to close then. He heard it breathing, not his own. It was slow and heavy, deep and steady. Something was in the cave with him. He turned his head slowly, tried to adjust his eyes to the dark. He saw a shape, large, covered in thick fur. It moved with silent steps. A pair of glowing eyes stared back at him. He froze. The creature stepped closer. It looked like a wolf, but it was not a wolf. Its legs were longer, its arms almost human, its body lean and powerful, its teeth sharp and exposed. It growled low in its throat. Eli's heart beat louder than ever. Before he knew, this was it. This was how he would die. Not in the crash, not in the cold, but in the mouth of an alien predator. He didn't move. He couldn't. Creature stood over him, watched him, sniffed the air. Then something strange happened. It stopped growling. It turned and it lay down beside him. Eli blinked. He wasn't dreaming. The creature didn't attack. It curled up. Its body touched his warmth. He didn't understand. He didn't speak. He just let the warmth cover him like a shield. Pain rushed over him. Then darkness. He passed out. Hours later, or maybe days, he opened his eyes again. The cave was still quiet. Snow blew outside the entrance, but inside the air was calm. He turned his head. The creature was still there, still beside him. Its body was pressed against his. Its fur covered his chest like a thick blanket. It had saved him. It had chosen to keep him warm. It could have eaten him, but it didn't. Stared at it. Slow breaths moved its chest. Its eyes were closed. Eli didn't speak, didn't move. He didn't want to break the moment. Then its eyes opened. They looked right at him, not wild, not cold, but aware. He whispered, "Thank you." It didn't reply, but it didn't leave either. For hours they stayed like that, two different beings, sharing one cave, one warmth. Later, Eli tried to sit up. His ribs ached. His leg throbbed. The creature stood, watched him. Then it moved to the corner of the cave, picked something up from the ground. Meat, cooked, wrapped in leaves. It brought the food to him. He looked at it with disbelief. She had hunted, cooked, prepared. She was not just an animal. He took the food slowly, ate with trembling hands. She watched every bite, her head tilted, her eyes studying him. He finished the last piece, then leaned back. Exhausted, grateful, she stepped closer, lowered her head, sniffed his forehead. Then she did something no one expected. She spoke one word, clear, soft. "Human," she said. Eli stared at her. He thought he imagined it, the voice, that single word. His name, but she said it again, Eli. This time, her voice was softer, like she was testing it, learning how to shape it with her mouth. He didn't answer, couldn't. His mind raced. He was speaking to an alien, one that looked like a predator, but acted nothing like one. She stepped back and sat down. Not like an animal, not like a guard, but like a person who chose to stay. Her eyes never left his. They were golden, sharp, but not cruel. Eli pressed his back against the cave wall. His leg was still broken. The pain pulsed like a heartbeat. He winced without meaning to. She noticed. She moved closer again, slow, careful, as if trying not to scare him. Then she reached out with one clawed hand, gently touched his leg. He tensed. but she didn't press hard. She was checking the wound. Her hand was warm, her touch light. She pulled away, stood up and left the cave. Eli panicked. She was gone minutes past. Then more. He didn't know if she would return. He didn't know why he even cared. But then the shadows at the cave's edge shifted. She came back, carrying something. In her hands, plants, moss vines. She dropped them beside him, then knelt and began crushing them between two flat stones. The smell was bitter. Medicinal. Eli watched in silence, his mouth slightly open. She made a paste, lifted it with her fingers, then reached for his leg. He wanted to stop her, but something in her eyes told him to trust. He nodded slowly. She spread the paste over the wound. It stung, burned like fire. But then the pain began to fade. Her hand lingered for a moment. Then she pulled back and looked at him, waiting. Eli whispered, "Thank you." She tilted her head, did not reply, but her ears perked at the sound. He said it again, slower. "Thank you." She tried to repeat it, tongue stumbling, but close they sat like that through the night, speaking little. Just sounds, glances, breath. In the morning, he woke up to find her gone again. He sat up slowly, afraid she had left for good. But then she returned, dragging the body of a four-legged creature behind her. She was a hunter, that much was clear, but she brought the kill to him as if it was his. She skinned it with sharp claws, cut the meat with care, cooked it over hot rocks outside the cave. When she brought the cooked meat to him, he took it without fear. He ate. She watched. Then she ate too. It became a rhythm. Day after day, she hunted. He rested. They shared the cave. They shared food. They shared warmth. At night, she lay beside him again, not too close, but close enough that her body heat touched his. She didn't speak much, only practiced the words he taught. Her fire, cold food, sleep, and his name. She liked saying his name. One night, he looked at her across the fire and asked, "What's your name?" She didn't answer. He tried again. "Name you name." She blinked, then touched her chest and said, "Karahe," smiled. Karashi repeated his smile, almost perfect, almost human. Eli thought of the people back home. What would they say if they saw this, a man and a wolf-like alien, sitting in a cave sharing food, smiling at each other? They would call her dangerous, a threat, but she wasn't. She was brave, smart, kind. She was something else too, something he couldn't name yet. That night, the snow outside stopped falling, the sky cleared. Eli stepped out of the cave for the first time. Akara followed him. They stood under the stars. Silent, still. Eli looked at the sky. He missed Earth. But this place, this cold moon, had given him something he never expected, a connection. He turned to Kara. She looked up at him. No words were said, but something passed between them, something quiet and deep. He stepped closer. She didn't move. Their shoulders touched, just for a moment, and then she spoke again, her voice quiet as snow. Eli, he looked at her, and for the first time he felt something real, not fear, not confusion, but peace. She reached out, touched his hand with hers, her claws careful not to cut, just to hold. He didn't pull away. They stood like that, human and alien, in the still of the night under stars. Neither of them truly belonged to, yet somehow they had found each other. The sun never rose on that frozen moon. Only a dim blue light stretched across the sky. Eli stood at the cave entrance, wrapped in a blanket of silence and frost. Kara stood beside him. She watched the horizon, her eyes focused, her muscles tight. Something felt different today. The air was too quiet. The wind had stopped. The birds that usually circled above the cliffs were gone. Kara sniffed the air. Her ears twitched. She turned to Eli and gave a low sound, a warning. Something was coming. Eli followed her eyes. A black dot moved in the sky, slow descending. His heart jumped. A ship. He reached for the flare in his pack, the one he kept for emergencies. He lit it, raised it into the air. The red light burned into the cold sky. The ship turned toward them. Kara didn't move. Her body stayed between Eli and the light. She didn't speak, didn't growl, but something in her posture had changed. Eli stepped around her. He waved both arms, shouting, calling out. The ship landed slowly. Snow flew into the air. Side opened. Two humans stepped out, wearing thick suits and holding rifles. Eli ran toward them, laughing, crying, relieved. They grabbed him, checked his vitals, scanned his body. "You're lucky to be alive." We thought the crash killed everyone. What happened? How did you survive? Eli turned to point back at the Kavakara stood at the edge. Her fur blew gently in the wind. Her golden eyes locked on the men with guns. She didn't step forward. But she didn't hide. Eli smiled. She did. She saved me. The soldiers looked at her. Their smiles faded. What is that? Is it dangerous? Should we shoot? Eli shook his head. No, she's the reason I'm alive. She protected me. She hunted for me. She healed my wounds. She kept me warm through the nights. One of the men raised his rifle. Justin Kasakara didn't flinch. She took one step forward, then another. The second man pulled out a stun device. Eli stepped between them, his arms wide. Then please, she's not a threat. The first soldier frowned. You don't understand. This species is known to be hostile. She's one of the Lurati. They eat humans. We lost a whole team to them last year. Eli looked back at Kara. She stood calm. Still she didn't attack. She didn't even raise her claws. Eli turned back. She's not like that. She had the chance to kill me every day. She didn't. She chose not to. The men whispered to each other, then nodded. We'll take her in for study. Command will want to see this. Eli felt cold again, not from the snow, but from the word study. Command cages. No, you can't take her. She's not a specimen. She's a person. She speaks. She learns. She understands everything. The soldiers didn't listen. They stepped past him, raised the stun device, pointed it at Karashi, stepped back, let out a low growl. Not a threat, a warning. One soldier pressed the trigger. A pulse of blue light shot forward, hit her square in the chest. Her body dropped to the snow. Eli ran to her, dropped to his knees. She was still breathing, but her body was limp, unmoving. He looked up at them, his face filled with rage. Why? She didn't fight. She didn't do anything. Soldier answered. It's standard protocol. Non-human species with potential threat level must be secured. They lifted her body, carried her toward the ship. Followed. He sat beside her as the engine started. He held her hand, her claws no longer sharp, just cold. She whispered his name once. Eli then went quiet again. Ship rose into the sky, left the moon behind, left the cave, the fire, the nights under the stars. Back on the main station, Kara was locked inside a glass room. Doctors scanned her. Scientists watched her. Command officers debated her future. She didn't speak, didn't move. She sat in the corner, her eyes on the door, waiting. Eli wasn't allowed near her. They told him he was too close, too emotional, too compromised. He argued, he shouted, he begged. No one listened. One night, he sneaked into the lab, used his old access code, walked past the guards, into the cold steel halls. He reached the glass room. She was there, still in the same corner. He tapped the glass. Kara looked up. Her eyes changed. They lit up. She stood, pressed her hand against the glass. He pressed his hand to the same spot. I'm here. I didn't leave you. Her eyes blinked slowly. Her mouth moved. Not alone. Her voice was soft, unsteady, but human. Eli's throat closed. He couldn't speak. He just nodded. She reached her hand lower, touched the lock on the door from inside, looked at him. She was asking him to help to set her free. Kara sat in the corner of the cold white room. The walls were smooth. The ceiling buzzed with lights that never turned off. Cameras followed her every move, every breath, every blink. She didn't sleep. She didn't eat the food they gave her. She didn't speak. She only watched the door. She was waiting, not for freedom, not for a chance to escape. She was waiting for him. Eli. Each time the door clicked open, each time boots echoed in the hallway, she looked up with hope, but it was never him. Only strangers in coats, only hands that pointed, scanners, only questions and words she didn't want to learn. They called her Subject Zero. They called her hostile. They called her it, but she didn't listen to those words. She only remembered his warm, soft, kind. Eli had said her name like it mattered. He had fed her when she was wounded. He had shared his fire, his fear, his heart, and then they took her from him. Remembered the cold sting of the stun blast, the weight of her body hitting snow, the sound of Eli's voice yelling her name, begging them to stop. She remembered his hands holding hers on the ship, his tears falling onto her fur now. He was gone, and she was alone, but not forever. She could still feel him somewhere close. His scent, his voice, his presence would come. He had on the other side of the station. Eli sat in a small dark room, no windows, No clock. Just a desk and a screen. They were questioning him again. Same questions. Every day. How did she learn to speak? Did she threaten you? Did she control your mind? He said no. Every time. She's not a monster. She saved me. She chose not to hurt me. She trusted me. They didn't believe him. They called him delusional. They said he was bonded to her because of stress, that it was a survival illusion. Eli didn't argue anymore. Words didn't work here. He needed a different way. That night, he walked through the lower corridors of the station. He still remembered the layout. He had worked maintenance before the crash. He knew which halls were quiet, which doors were half broken, which cameras had blind spots. He wore a lab coat he borrowed from an empty locker. He moved fast, eyes focused, heart steady. When he reached the lab doors, he stopped through the glass. He saw her. Kara was standing, not pacing, not growling, just still. Her eyes locked onto him the moment he appeared. She stepped forward, pressed her hand against the glass. He pressed his hand to hers. Only a thin barrier between them. He whispered, "I'm sorry. I should have stopped them. I should have protected you." She looked into his eyes, not angry, not broken. Still waiting, still believing. He checked the door controls. The lock needed a code, but the panel was old. One of the systems he used to repair. He removed the outer shell, rewired the power feed, bypassed the manual lock. The door slid open. Kara stepped back, surprised, then stepped forward again. He opened his arms. She moved into them, wrapped herself around him. Her warmth, her scent, all returned. He held her tight. No words, only breath, only being whole again. But the moment was short. Sirens began to scream. Security breach in lab sector. Unauthorized access. Containment compromised. Eli grabbed her hand. Run. They moved through the halls, fast, silent. She followed his steps exactly, her body low, eyes sharp. They made it to the hangar. A single transport shuttle waited inside. He typed the emergency override. The doors opened. Kara turned to him, one question in her eyes, where he pointed to the stars above the glass ceiling. Anywhere but here. Somewhere. We choose together. They entered the ship, strapped in. Engines hummed. The doors behind them opened. Guards poured into the hangar, weapons raised. Ele turned. Kara stepped in front of him, claws out, teeth bared. She didn't attack. She just stared. The guards hesitated. One of them shouted, "She's leaving with a human. What kind of trick is this?" The commander raised his weapon, ready to fire. Eli shouted back, "She didn't choose war. You did." The engines screamed. The ship lifted, blasted through the roof. Glass shattered behind them. Kara held onto Eli as stars stretched across the screen. For the first time in days, they were free. Eli leaned back, breathing hard. Kara curled beside him, her hand on his chest. He looked at her. She looked at him. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, then whispered something new. "Home." The stars outside the ship looked endless, like a sea of light that never touched the ground. Eli sat in the pilot seat, one hand on the controls, the other holding her. Kara was quiet beside him, her head resting against his shoulder. She hadn't spoken much since they escaped, but her eyes stayed open, alert, watching every corner of space like a guardian. They had no destination, no plan, only each other. Eli scanned the star maps. Most systems were under human control, monitored, patrolled. But then he saw it, a small green moon orbiting a dead planet, unregistered, unclaimed, no colonies, no signals. Perfect. He changed course. Kara said nothing. But when the moon appeared through the glass, she leaned forward, her eyes lit with something new, curiosity. Ship entered the atmosphere. Thick clouds wrapped around them. But below was green forests, lakes, mountains with silver peaks. It didn't feel empty. It felt untouched. They landed by the water. The shore was quiet. Waves kissed the ground. Birds with silver wings flew overhead. Kara stepped outside first. She sniffed the air, touched the ground with her claws, then turned and nodded. Safely followed the wind, carried the scent of flowers and rain. He looked around. No towers, no walls, no orders. For the first time he was not a soldier, not a subject, just a man. He gathered supplies from the ship. Kara found wood. Together they built a shelter. Not large, not perfect, but there's. At night they sat by a fire, the stars still above. but now part of there. Skykara slowly began to speak more. Her words came easier. She asked questions. She answered his water. Why do trees sleep? Why do humans cry? He answered each one, sometimes with words, sometimes with silence. One night he showed her a picture. From his pack, his sister smiling with 2 kids by a lake. Akara looked at it for a long time. Then asked home. Eli nodded. She traced the picture with her claw. Then looked up at him. Here is this your new home? He wanted to answer, but the words didn't come. Instead, he touched her hand, held it in his. She didn't pull away. Days turned into weeks. They hunted together, fished, explored the land. Kara showed him how to move without sound, how to smell the air before a storm, how to read the sky. She was more than strong. She was wise. She taught him how to listen. One morning, they stood at the edge of the lake. Eli threw a stone across the surface. It skipped 3 times. Kara watched, then picked up a stone and tried it. Dropped straight down. She frowned. Eli laughed. She did too. It was the first time he heard her laugh. It didn't sound human. It sounded real. That night, she sat beside the fire, her eyes on the flames. Then she spoke. My kind. We are chosen at birth, trained to fight, trained to lead. We do not choose mates. Seely listened. He didn't interrupt. But I chose you when I stayed in the cave, when I gave you food, when I spoke your name. He looked into her eyes. They were not wild, not cold. They were full of something deeper. She placed her hand on her chest. My people call it soul bond. We only bond once. Only one mate for life. Eli's heart skipped. She continued. I didn't mean to. But when I laid beside you that first night, my body chose, my heart followed. Now I am yours. If you want me. The fire cracked. Wind moved through the trees. Eli reached for her hand, held it tight. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Kara leaned closer, rested her head against him. They slept like that, as night wrapped around them, as stars moved across the sky. The morning was calm. Birds called through the trees. Soft waves tapped the lake's edge. Eli woke to the scent of wildflowers and warm earth. Kara was already outside. Her shadow stretched across the tent as she moved silently through the grass. He stepped out. She turned, greeted him with a soft smile, the kind she saved just for him. They had lived here for weeks. No soldiers, no scanners, no cages, just sky, soil, freedom. Kara had built a tower of smooth stones near the water. Each one marked a day. They had survived together. 32 stones now stood tall, but something felt different that morning. Even the wind carried a strange weight. A whisper from far away. Kara crouched near the shore, her ears lifted, her eyes narrowed. Eli followed her gaze. A shimmer moved in the air above the lake like heat waves, but colder, sharper. Reached for his scanner. It blinked a red pulse. Unknown energy. Kara stood slowly, her muscles tight, her claws flexed once. This is not storm, not wind, something else. Eli knew that look. He had seen it before, right before danger. They moved together, fast, silent, through trees, over rocks, up to the high ridge above the lake. From there they saw a tear in the sky. Not natural, not weather. It opened like a wound. A ring of violet light spun inside it. Then a shape came through, smooth black, flying low. A ship, not human. Kara took a step back. Her chest rose and fell, her breath heavy. She knew that design. She knew that ship. It's my people. They found us. Eli froze. His heart thudded in his ears. He looked at her. What do they want? She didn't answer. He stepped closer. Kara, what do they want with you? Still no answer. Only the tightening of her jaw, the way her claws dug into her palms. Then she spoke, voice low. I was not supposed to bond with an outsider. I broke the vow. Now they come to take me back or destroy me. Eli stepped in front of her. They won't take you. They won't touch you. I promise. Kara shook her head. You don't know them. They don't understand love. Only rules, only strength. The ship landed on the far side of the lake. 3 figures stepped out, tall, covered in black armor, eyes glowing with red light. Kara's body shifted, not backward, but forward. She stepped ahead of Eli, shoulders wide, breath steady. She was not afraid. One of the aliens raised a hand, spoke in her lingua. Kara did not answer. Another stepped forward, tossed something onto the ground, a symbol carved from silver bone. Eli didn't know what it meant, but Kara did. She looked at it, then Looked down for the first time. She looked small. That is the mark of exile. They will not take me home. They will burn this place. Burn everything I touch. Tile's hands clenched. No, they can't. You did nothing wrong. She looked at him, eyes full of something. Heavy. I did everything wrong. According to them, I bonded with a human. I chose emotion. I chose love. The third alien raised a weapon, pointed it at Corelli, moved without thinking. Stood in front of here. You'll have to go through me. The alien tilted, its head confused, maybe amused. Kara grabbed Eli's shoulder, pulled him back gently. No, this is my fight. She stepped forward, spoke in her own tongue. Fast, sharp. The aliens paused. One of them lowered his weapon, looked between her and Eli, then stepped back. The leader stared at Kara, then gave a final command. The ship powered up. Kara turned, watched them lift into the sky. The ring of light opened again, and the ship disappeared. Eli let out a long breath. They left. Why did they leave? Kara looked down at the silver symbol still lying in the dirt. Because I am no longer one of them. They left me as dead. Eli stepped forward, took her hand. You're not dead. You're not alone. She looked at him, eyes wet. I knew they would come, but I did not expect to feel this. Not fear, not pain, relief. She dropped the silver symbol into the fire. It cracked, snapped in half, turned black. Then she leaned against Eli. He wrapped his arms around her, held her tight. We're still here, he said. Still together. She nodded, then whispered, now I know this is my world, not by birth, but by choice with you. The wind shifted. The lake stood still. Even the birds in the trees had gone quiet. Eli sat by the fire, sharpening a stick into a fishing spear. Kara was behind him, braiding vines for rope. The silence felt heavier than usual. She paused, sniffed the air. Eyes narrowed. Eli looked up. What is it? Kara stood slowly. Every hair along her spine stood on edge. Something is wrong. Eli dropped the spear, ran to the ridge near their shelter. The sky to the north shimmered, not with stars, but with smoke, dark, rising fast. It looked like a storm, but the wind blew the wrong way. Kara stepped beside him. She watched, silent. Then a roar tore through the air, low, mechanical, powerful. Eli's heart sank. Another ship, but not like before. This one fell. It dropped from the sky like a dead bird. Its engines screamed, its body torn and flaming. It crashed into the valley with a sound like thunder. The ground shook. A cloud of fire rolled up into the sky. Eli turned to Kara. Her face had gone cold. That is not my people, not human. Either. He looked at her, then at the smoke. Someone else. Someone new. Kara moved fast. She gathered weapons, prepared traps, sharpened stones. Eli followed her lead. He had never seen her move like this. Whoever came, they weren't here for peace. Night fell. The forest glowed red from the fire in the valley. The smoke drifted across the sky like a curtain. Then came the sound of footsteps. Heavy, fast. Kara pulled Eli behind a tree, waited. 3 creatures emerged from the dark, tall, covered in bone armor. Eyes glowing blue, not her kind, not human, something older. They moved like predators, their weapons alive with green light. One of them sniffed the air, turned toward the shelter. They had Eli's scent. Kara let out a low growl, stepped from the shadows. The alien stopped. She spoke in a tongue Eli didn't know, sharp and deep. The lead creature hissed back, raised its weapon. Kara leaped, faster than lightning. Her claws sliced through its arm. It screamed, dropped the weapon. Eli grabbed it, fired once. The light hit the second alien. It fell to the ground, twitched, went still. The third ran. Kara chased it into the trees. Eli knelt beside the first alien. Its breathing faded, its blood thick like oil. He stood up, waited, but Kara didn't return. Minutes passed. Then she appeared, dragging the last creature behind her. It was unconscious, but alive. She threw it at Eli's feet. We need answers. They tied it to a tree, waited for it to wake. When it opened its eyes, it looked at Kara, then at Eli, then it spoke in broken human words. You are the key. The male Eli stepped back. What key? What do you want? The creature smiled, not with joy, with hunger. The bond you carry, the bond between species. They want it broken or stolen. Kara stood over the creature. Who sent you? The creature laughed. You already know. Her eyes widened. She turned to Eli. It's not a new enemy. It's a secret faction from my own world. They never accepted my exile. They want my death and your DNA. I felt sick. So it was never over. They had only bought Tamakura. Looked at him, her face calm, but her eyes full of sadness. They will come again. More than 3. More than we can fight. Eli reached for her hand. We can run. We've done it before. She shook her head. They will never stop. Not until the bond is broken. Not until we are gone. He pulled her closer. Then we fight. She smiled a real smile, then kissed his forehead. You would fight a war for me. Looked at her. I would burn the stars for you. That night, they prepared traps, weapons, signals, but the sky burned before. They were ready. 10 ships, not small, not falling. They landed with purpose. Legs slammed into the earth. Doors opened. Dozens of soldiers stepped out. Each one armed, each one trained. Eli and Kara stood side by side. No fear, no surrender. They moved as one. She leapt. He fired. The battle shook the trees, lit up the sky, but they were outnumbered. Eli was thrown by an explosion. His arm broken, his vision blurred. He saw Kara fall. Hit by a blast, she crawled to him, blood on her lips. He held her close. Stay with me, please. She touched his face. My mate, my choice always. She pressed her forehead to his, then closed her eyes. The soldiers stopped, looked down at them. Something changed in their faces. One of them stepped forward, dropped his weapon, knelt beside Kara. He whispered in her language, then turned to Eli. She fought for you, against her kind and ours. This is love. Another soldier lowered his gun. Then another. The leader stepped forward, looked at Kara, then at Eli. She died with honor. You live with her spirit. The soldiers lifted their weapons, not to fire, but to salute. Then one by one, they left. Eli sat in the smoke holding her. The sky cleared. The wind returned, and in the morning her eyes opened, barely but enough. She smiled and said one last word, mate.